You can find some help in the Life Raft. You're never by yourself in the Life Raft. When you're sick, when you're scared, it's nice to know someone who cares in the same boat. Yeah, hope floats in the Life Raft.
I'd like to bring our honorary chair up to talk for a few minutes, George Demetri. Before I do, I should tell you, George has a lot of achievements in his life, a lot of scientific achievements, but one of them is that he made some critical decisions along the way that are responsible for saving my wife's life. And it is very hard to express a level of indebtedness to somebody who's done that, but I am indebted. So, George.
Well, those of you who know me know that I can talk for the next 3 hours, easily. Piece of cake. But it's late already. Don't want to keep you up past midnight. But I did have this opportunity. Norman said that I had 15 minutes to talk about what the last 10 years have been like. And I don't know that anybody can quite crystallize the kind of once-in-a-lifetime experience that many of the people that you just saw on the stage, my close laboratory colleague, John Fletcher, my close clinical colleague, Meg Von Meren, my other clinical colleagues that couldn't be here tonight, Chuck Blanke and Chris Corliss, and of course Mike Heinrich out in Oregon, and of course the people who started it with the very first patient in Finland, Heikki Jensu and Peter Roberts. What it was like for us to be a part of this back 10 years ago, 2000, when nobody could spell GIST. Nobody knew, was it pronounced GIST or GIST? And most people, thanks to Gilles Friedman, who thought they had leiomyosarcoma, found out they actually didn't. And that was some parts of this. When the story of this does get told someday in a great, or maybe not so great, made-for-TV movie, and Danny DeVito plays me. All right, fine, so it'll be Brad Pitt. Yes. But when this gets told, the bottom line on this is that there was a convergence of incredible things going on in the world. This was when the internet was new, right? I mean, Google started in 1998. We forget that. I mean, it's such a part of our life right now. And when we started thinking about this, it was 1999. We started thinking about these signaling pathways in GIST. And I got introduced through Gilles Friedman to the power of the internet when we were starting to worry that people didn't quite get their diagnosis. And we were very used to the fact that traditional medical channels, for all their good, can be like trying to steer the Titanic around, an ant. That it's really not going to happen all that quickly. And we were impressed with how traditional medical professionals in the pathology world educated themselves right away and made diagnoses better and better and better, and the surgeons educated themselves, and the medical oncologists educated themselves. But it took a while. So in those early days, when literally life depended upon getting the news out quickly, it was incredible to see the power of the internet, and then also the power of the collaboration that came together, the power of what you've heard today, of forming a community, an alignment between a company that had a tremendous drug. We don't give enough credit also to the people like Jörg Zimmermann, this terrific medicinal chemist at Novartis, who made a compound that can be taken by mouth, gets absorbed, doesn't hurt the liver, doesn't cause terrible things. I mean, we take those things for granted, but that's hard chemistry to do. And believe me, we tested a whole bunch of other things from Sugen, this wonderful company that they themselves would say, yeah, that other drug that we were testing was pretty much a dog drug because it couldn't be absorbed by mouth. It couldn't get into the circulation enough. And those things all came together in the form of imatinib, and then subsequently in the form of sunitinib, and in the form now of nilotinib, and in the form of all the other IBs, what Bob Mackey at Memorial Sloan Kettering has always called the SIBs of IBs. Because there are all these IBs around, right? Sunitinib, imatinib, nilotinib, neratinib, masitinib, Somebody's, we're going to have a rap. Do we have anybody with a rap writer who could write the Ib rap? I can see that one coming. Note to self, composed song. So, again, I think that for me, I grew up watching people in my family take chemotherapy for cancer. It was a horrible experience to watch people do that. And again, we do okay with chemotherapy in some diseases. It cures some leukemias, cures some Hodgkin's disease, certainly can cure the Lance Armstrong disease of testicular cancer. But in our training as a medical oncologist, we gain great respect for what it cannot do. And we gain great respect for what it could not do in patients with many kinds of sarcomas. And we've got John Trent from MD Anderson here today, who's a leading clinician in the care of patients with sarcomas. We've got Meg Von Maren running the sarcoma program at Fox Chase. And in our group in Boston, we're very interested in the fact that some sarcomas, like Ewing sarcoma, can be cured with chemotherapy, but a lot of them, it just bounced off the disease, and yet it hurt the patient. So it was really a gift from above to have a drug where you could give it to somebody and almost reproducibly count on it helping that patient. It's like an antibiotic. You know, when we give antibiotics for pneumonias, you don't expect you're going to not have the antibiotic work. You expect it'll work. My wife is a primary care doc, and, you know, she picks antibiotics and patients think she's God, kind of like surgeons. You know, when a surgeon does an operation, they get the tumor out, okay? Patients think they're God. We medical oncologists, just like Norman says, like we're hitting over the head with a 2x4. It's like they don't think we're God. At that point, they think we're kind of stupid. And in fact, when Gleevec came out, when we started doing this work and we were presenting this to our board of trustees, one of our board members came up to us and I thought, I always thought you guys were kind of stupid about this, but it looks like you're on the right track now. We, the board of trustees, always had faith in you that you'd figure it out someday, and it looks like you're starting to figure it out. So we're starting to figure it out, but I also want to emphasize what has been said earlier, and something I think is really critical. We can't pat ourselves on the back too fast or too much without the hope that we will continue to build this community and work towards the future. Because what's absolutely true is that we are not curing people with the medicines. There are still other pathways that even John Fletcher hasn't yet figured out, and other ways in which none of us have figured out how to drug the disease into submission. We can certainly control it, but for most people, at some point, the control wears off, and that's just horrific. So we have time now to really focus on that. And one thing that we can do as a community is recognize what we don't know and support the very best research. And I can't say this enough. One of the reasons that GIST became a paradigm disease is because we, of course, had a drug that works better than anybody could have expected. I just came from a meeting on new drugs in Europe, and I cannot tell you how many people talking about their drug against some other pathway in a different disease would always say, well, this is what we saw, and this is a very nice response in this lung cancer patient, but of course it's not like Gleevec and GIST, and then here's what we saw here, but of course it's not like Gleevec and GIST. There must have been 10 presentations that used that phrase. So we got a little bit spoiled here because Gleevec and GIST set a gold standard that Sutent and GIST came close to for some patients, but this disease is plastic. It waffles in front of our eyes and then it changes, it morphs, as some of the resistance mutations that John Fletcher and Mike Heinrich and Chris Corliss have shown us. And we need new drugs with new mechanisms, new drugs that will work in combination, in tandem, and better than the drugs we have now. And the only way we're going to get those new drugs is to pull together as a community and support the research. Not just with money, I mean with people's participation. I cannot tell you how scary it is when I go across the world and talk to my colleagues in the French sarcoma group, the German sarcoma group, the Italian sarcoma group, and all over the place we're seeing patients stop participating in research studies. And that will cause a grating halt to the progress we've made. So I think the first decade has been around terrific progress. And now what we need to do is recognize what we don't know. Because the truth is, after imatinib and after sunitinib, we have no FDA-approved drugs for this disease. And it's our job to change the world, to truly make drugs that work effectively and safely available to patients. And the way to do that is to support the research. That's the way we got imatinib and sunitinib to patients in need as quickly as possible. So I would encourage you all, again, to pull together and to support the kind of research that comes from a community of people, of like-minded individuals who really want to change the world. And it's both the power of one, but also the power of many. And that's what I see in this room. That's what we've been trying to build in our academic and industrial alliances. People who are aligned for the good of the patients. People who are aligned for the good of all patients. Because this is the other thing. GIST has taught us an awful lot that our colleagues in breast cancer and lung cancer are now learning from. And they're making a huge difference in making those diseases go away. Melanoma has a terrific drug that's coming out, very Gleevec-like. Everybody shows these pictures of this melanomas treated with PLX 4032. It doesn't even have a name yet, it's just got a code name, 4032. And everybody says, oh, it looks like Gleevec for GIST, and it does. It absolutely does in some melanomas. So that's the future, and this group of people in this room and the patients are depending upon it, and we are committed to it. So that commitment is not going away. I definitely thank Norman and the Life Raft Group for the commitment that they had. When this started, when the Life Raft Group started, it really was a group of people in the same boat. I actually like that song that we just heard because he said, you know, we're all in the same boat. Because that was the idea. There were a bunch of people coming into the various clinical trial centers, and they all felt like they were in the same boat, and they were really trying to pull together, and that's what we're still trying to do. And more than ever, we have the ability to do that. More than ever because we take the internet for granted. More than ever because we have some of the world's largest and some of the world's smallest but most creative pharmaceutical companies interested in this disease. I can't tell you how much Jonathan and I, how much time we spent going to people trying to get them interested in this disease, constantly getting the shoo away, go, you don't bother us. Nobody does that anymore. Nobody does that because they know this is an important disease. It teaches us things, and patients' lives are depending upon it. And I can't speak enough, highly enough, about the collaborative spirit of the international investigators. Our colleagues in Australia, in France, in Germany, and Japan are a terrific group of people to work with. So with that, I can only say thank you for all of this. I feel very similar to what Dr. Vasella said. I don't deserve this myself. There was a pathologist named Seiichi Hirota who really wrote the pivotal paper that defined the KIT mutation in this disease. John Fletcher toiled endless hours to develop some of the first cell lines, along with Brian Rubin in our group, both of whom are now participating in Life Raft Group basic science investigations. It's a team effort. All of us work together, and I would say I'm honored to be part of this team. And thank you all for showing up tonight. Thank you for the warmth. And Norman, thank you for inviting me.
You can find some help in the Life Raft. You're never by yourself.